Welcome, welcome everyone on the Zoom call, and if you're listening to the recording, welcome to this Nuyem night. Gonna start us off by way of gratitude. Giving thanks for the greatness of spirit in all things, for the greatness of spirit in all things. Giving thanks for great spirit. Giving thanks at this time for all of our relations, for the two-legged, for the four-legged, for the ones that swim, for the ones that fly, for the ones that crawl upon the earth, for the ones we cannot touch with our hands, but that we were touched by deep inside. Giving thanks. Giving thanks at this time for the beauty of our homeland, for the place where the mountains meet the ocean. Giving thanks for the changing of the seasons, the rhythms and cycles of the land that inform and shape our people. Giving thanks at this time for the depth of this winter that we're in and the ways in which that we connect and share in this way during the winter time. Giving thanks at this time for all that will be shared tonight in our journey of reclaiming and repairing and healing, honoring and giving thanks for all the things that sustain and uphold our wellness on our journey of healing and recovery as a people. Honoring and giving thanks for that kinship bond that we have with our homeland, for the ways in which our homeland shaped and influenced and inspired our culture, our stories, our tools, our regalia, our songs, our ceremonies, our language, honoring that deep kinship bond as it echoes on through the hearts and blood memory of our people. Giving thanks and honoring at this time this coming together of hearts in the way of listening and receiving and understanding and being understood by what's shared. Honoring at this time this journey of receiving what's shared during these Nuyem events. Honoring the ways in which that it lands in our hearts and our minds and our spirits, the ways in which it impacts and influences and affects us on all levels, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally. Honoring and giving thanks for the ways in which these things that are shared will continue to echo on and shape us and influence our journey and our journey of healing and recovery and reclamation as a people. And honoring and giving thanks for all the creatures and all the plants and all of the birds and the fish that call our homeland home, all the ways in which that they keep it and have made it the wild beauty that it is. Honoring at this time the echo of our ancestors, their love and their strength and their sacredness. Honoring that echo of our ancestors' light in ours. Honoring the ways in which their light and their strength and their wisdom and their beauty echoes on in the hearts of their descendants. Honoring and giving thanks for the coming together of hearts tonight in a good way, in a loving way, in a sacred way. Wah.
All right, thank you for that. Ab has a presentation that he wants to do today. I really like Ab's work. Prior to today, I was up doing my own studies last night, and I made some really big breakthroughs on my own. And I find that the more and more I read, the more I'm able to guess what the next sentences are in the old stories that I was reading. So when I first started, I think it was 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I could basically say youts and some things that my uncles had taught me that are appropriate. So, and that even those weren't even proper pronunciation, because years later when I looked them up, the words changed quite a bit from what I learned as a young man. So just take time, take patience, and when you're trying to learn the written language, it's okay to make mistakes. And one thing I again want to point out is since it's standardized into the hybrid orthography that Ab had developed, It'll stay the same way all the time. So I believe the problem with writing it the way it sounds in English, first of all, you're writing it in the English language, and we don't have sounds for that. And we have some unique sounds in Haisla. And every time you start making breakthroughs, the language that seems so big, it gets smaller and smaller and a lot more focused. So it gets a lot easier. And keep doing the warm ups of reading backwards from the what you're trying to sound out, and then extend it all the way to the front of the word. And that will really build your repetitions in it, make it kind of instinctual like that. So when you're reading it, you're not really sounding it out anymore. It's starting to flow. So I encourage everyone to try read as much as you can. Wow. Take it away, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to share my screen and go to the Haisla website. So something that I've started doing this week is recording videos of myself doing Haisla handwriting. And it's going to be, this is the start of a series that I will call The Art of Haisla Handwriting, because there is an art to it. And it's something that I've learned as after developing the hybrid orthography, I started to think about what can be done in terms of handwriting to make everything as clear as possible when you're reading it. So the people who have seen me type are pretty impressed with how I'm able to type the language, but that really came from learning how to handwrite the language first. And that's something that I would, if I were to teach somebody new, that's what I would start with, is handwriting, and basically try to get across the point that there are a lot of things to keep in mind when you're handwriting, so that you can ensure that whoever's reading it has an easy time being able to differentiate one symbol from another one, and they're not getting confused between symbols that might look similar if you're not really taking the time to differentiate each individual syllable, each letter, each symbol. So this is the first episode here. So I'm going to click on this and we'll watch together. Ga'achda, ga'achda, breakfast. Kastisa, kastisa, lunch. Ganes, ganes, supper. Okay, so that is the first episode of The Art of Haisla Handwriting. So they're all going to be basically common themes. I'm going to keep the word lists short just because it takes a while to do all that handwriting. So the one thing that I want people to pay attention to is how slowly I'm actually doing it. And there's a purpose to that, and that's to make sure that each symbol is legible. Like you can tell that an apostrophe is an apostrophe and it's not an acute accent symbol. So that's why I've put so much time into learning the best way to do the handwriting. And you'll see as we go along, as the series progresses, how I write some of the more unique symbols that we have in the hybrid orthography. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. And I'm now going to share my screen again and go to a document that I have set up here. So I just made some notes here to kind of keep myself on track. So I've shared the handwriting video with you, and I'm going to be doing that. I'm hoping on a weekly basis. I'll do a new video each week. And I'm trying to decide which day I want to do it on. And I'm kind of thinking of Thursdays, just because I have the live stream that I do, which is monthly now. It's not every week like it was before. So yeah, if the live stream is on Friday, then Thursday will give me some time to later on in the week to do the handwriting videos and to get that prepared. So that's what I'm kind of thinking of for the time being. So those will be coming every week, a new handwriting video. I also wanted to make some corrections. I've made a few mistakes in previous presentations that I've done on this show. So one of the things was place names. So I wanted to revisit that. But before I do that, I wanted to talk about the presentation I did last week, where I talked about this acronym that I came up with, SAS, sounds, accent, and speed. So when I talked about the accent, I tried to use a short sentence as an example. And afterwards, I realized that I used the wrong one. So what I said was masikiada, and that means what is this? And it's referring to something that is close to me, the person who's speaking. But what I actually meant to say was this one here, and it's masigoda, masigoda. And it also has to do with asking what something is. But in this case, it means what is that close to you, the person that I'm speaking to. So this word here, gyada, means it's close to me, the one who's speaking. Goda means it's close to you, the person that I'm talking to. And there's also another variation of this, and it's masi kaida. Masi kaida. It also means what is that, but it means that it's away. So it's not close to me, the person who's speaking. It's not close to you, the person that I'm talking directly to. It's somewhere else. So there might be somebody else in the room. It's not close to either of us. Maybe I'm pointing to something close to them. Or it might be in a different room in the building that you're in. It just basically means that it's not close to either the person or either of the people who are involved in the conversation. So I just wanted to point that out in the moment. I meant to say masi goda, but I actually said this one here, masi gyada. So I just wanted to clear that up and make that correction. So going back to place names, I have this open in a different tab, so I'll switch to that. So one thing, if I zoom in here, one thing that I realized, I have watched parts of the videos from previous Nuyem events. So one thing that I noticed was that I couldn't see it that clearly, but I think this first name here, Tsimotsa, actually didn't have apostrophes on top of the C's. So those should be there. So I think that's why people might be led to believe that there's a close association between Timotza and Timaninu. So it came down to the fact that I was in a bit of a rush in preparing this document. I didn't really have time to proofread it before I presented it. So if I had done the proofreading, then I would have realized that there were some modifying symbols actually missing from my document. So I wanted to clear that up. So these C's should have apostrophes on top of them. So that's that. That's that name. Ha Isla, that one's okay. Timaninu. So this has a regular C. It doesn't have an apostrophe on top of it. So this is kind of a softer sound. It's more like Timaninu. When a C has an apostrophe on top, it's a harder, sharper sound. It's more like Timotza, Timaninu. So that apostrophe is the difference between t and t. So I just wanted to point that out. For Hastua, originally I described it as the place of milky green water, and Dustin pointed out that he had heard it's milky blue water. So I wanted to correct that, just to make it a little bit clearer to people who have heard that description before. So Hastua, place of milky blue water. And yeah, I changed this one slightly. If you look at this A here, this little dash on top, this is what we call an acute accent. So this is what I was talking about in terms of the accent rising and falling. When you see a syllable, like a consonant and a vowel, and the vowel has this little dash on top, that means you're going to put more emphasis on that syllable. So originally I had it at the end. This A had the acute accent. So that would be pronounced hasutla, where the accent rises at the end. But I was going through some documents and I realized that the accent is actually on the first A. So that means it's hasutla, hasutla. So it's a slight difference in terms of the symbology, the way the symbols are represented, but it makes a difference in terms of the pronunciation, where that accent falls. I also realized that this Q was also missing a modifier. So it should have an apostrophe on top. So it works kind of the same way as the C with the apostrophe. A regular Q sounds like, or this is actually a rounded Q. It has a small raised W, which just means that you're going to round your lips before you make the sound. So a regular rounded Q sounds like qua, qua. Rounded Q with an apostrophe on top of it makes it what we call adjective. So it's a harder, sharper sound. So it's more like qua, qua. So this would actually be aquan, aquan. So that's the Sand Hill by Rio Tinto, just north of the Rio Tinto site. And originally I had the word Gitlop, but then I started to realize I was talking about place names and wasn't sure if that really fit. So I decided to change it with another place that other people probably have heard a fair bit. And this is Wiwa. Wiwa. So this means big rivers. So it's basically, if I scroll over to the left here, this is Devastation Channel around that area. So you see one thing that you'll notice once you get further into learning the language and learning the orthography, anytime you see an A paired with another vowel, if it's an A and an A together, or an A and an I, or an A and a U, usually that syllable will become stressed, or it will get the accent. So if it was wee wah, then there'd be an accent on top of this I. But the accent is on this first A here. So that means you're going to be rising up towards the end of it. So it's wee wah, wee wah. So I just wanted to share that. And you notice that I typed here big rivers. So it's a plural form. So the singular form is just wah. Wah means big river, it's singular. Wee wah is plural. So big rivers. And also, I didn't really get into this
Hey,
the first time. Yeah.
Um, I was just wondering, so singular it's wee wah, so would that be with the accented A?
The plural is
W-I-double-A.
plural is wee wah.
Okay, and then singular?
Singular is wah.
Oh, so the we makes it plural. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. I didn't really go into this the first time I shared these place names. So I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but Haisla territory is separated into two main categories. So you've probably heard the term Wet'wes. Wet'wes translates to something like mountain or territory. And after contact, the Canadian government decided to classify them as trap lines. So you'll often hear Wet'wes being equated with trap lines. So these are basically parts of our territory that are passed down through clans. So the way that if anybody has a Wet'wes, then they inherited that through their clan when they received a clan name. If there was a Wet'wes attached to it, then that Wet'wes basically came under their care. So I just wanted to share that. Also, there are singular and plural forms of this. So Wahuis is the plural form. Wahuis is plural. Wet'wes is singular. So you wouldn't say Wet'weses. If you did that, then you'd be taking a high as the word and you'd be pluralizing it using English conventions. So if you say Wahuis, then you're using the highest, the pluralized word for it. So Wet'wes singular, Wahuis is plural. There's
So,
also, yeah.
Sorry. I know how the reduplication works at the beginning of it, but when I'm looking at Wahuis, is that an example of interior reduplication?
I believe so. This one's kind of unusual. I haven't really seen this before, but going back to reduplication, that's what's happening here. So you have the singular form wa. So you have a W and an A. The way reduplication works is you take the first syllable, like the first consonant and the vowel that follows it, you copy it and you put it in front of the word. But the vowel sometimes will change. It's usually an I. So that's why we have we wa becoming the plural form. That's what that process is called. It's reduplication. It often is used to form a plural of a singular form. It can also mean like something that is repeated, or like lots of something, or very something. So another example would be nakwa is a singular form meaning morning. Natnakwa is a reduplicated form. It's not a plural form, but it basically means like very morning or early morning, otherwise known as dawn. So there was the newsletter that was being run by George Rayleigh in the late 1800s, Natnakwa, that's what he called it, and that's the reduplicated form of Nakwa. So it works in a similar way, but it has different functions. So this process here is what you call initial reduplication, where the reduplicated syllable is going in front. So it's the initial sound of the word now. What Dustin was asking about was interior reduplication, which happens in the middle of a word. So sometimes there's a letter X inserted into a word and an apostrophe. So sometimes when you see that, that's actually the pluralizing action that's happening. Sometimes you'll see the first syllable and then an apostrophe and then the rest of the original word. So an example of that would be Haitmas, which is the singular form of hereditary chief. And one of the pluralized forms is Haitamas. Haitamas. That's one way of pluralizing Haitmas, where it's actually kind of breaking the word up and you're inserting something into the middle of the word. So that's interior reduplication. So I believe that's what's happening here in this plural form of Watwes. This next word, I believe this word is bakwalas. And this means a place where meat and salmon is gathered. So this is something that's open to Haisla members. So with the Watwes, in olden times, you would need to get permission from the Watwes holder to actually go and hunt or fish or pick berries and use the resources on that land. But a bakwalas is open to all Haisla members. So an example of that is the village site itself. So the village site is a bakwalas. It's open to all Haisla members. So you don't need permission to go and gather resources on the land. So this is my estimation as to what this word is. I've seen this variation of it, and I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I'm not sure where the accent would be placed. And also, I don't really understand the word structure here as well. So I don't know if it's bagueas or bagueas. I'm not really sure, but this is the form that I've seen in some documents. And I tend not to use it because I'm not sure about how accurate the spelling and pronunciation is. And what leads me to believe this is that I've never found this word in any Haisla dictionary. So that's why I'm a little bit wary of using that form of it. That's why I use this one here, because it is described in different dictionaries and it has essentially the same meaning as what bagueas or
I've heard
bagueas.
the word bagwayas, and it was to gather medicines and foods to areas of great abundance.
Mhm.
I don't know how to spell it either.
Yeah.
And I don't know how accurate my ears were, but that was a word from Kamano.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yeah, I tend to use this one here because it is documented in dictionaries.
I use
And I've-
bagwayas because that's what my grandfather taught me.
yeah, so
Both are right.
okay, so I wanted to share that just to correct myself. I do make mistakes from time to time, and some of it just happens as a result of doing presentations. That's just something that goes along with the territory. Sometimes you you're thinking something, but you actually say something else by mistake, or you're meaning to write one thing, but actually type out something else and don't really check it. So I just wanted to offer these corrections. And the
Excellent
next,
work.
yeah, thank you. The next thing I wanted to share, actually go back to my notes, is what I call keys to learning Haisla, or another way of referring to it is what to expect when you're expecting to learn Haisla. So I've got a presentation that I've started to develop here. So keys to learning Haisla. So these are things to keep in mind before you actually kind of dive headfirst into the language. These are things that will really prepare you. These are things that you might not think about before you actually start learning the language. And I think that they're really going to be helpful in terms of putting you on the right path to learning the language. So the first key to learning Haisla, and not just Haisla, but any language. So I've actually been studying other languages, and I take the same approach no matter which language it is. I start with the sounds first. So for example, if I want to learn how to speak Greek, I go to Google, I type in Greek orthography. So that immediately will give me an idea of the sounds of Greek and also the spelling. So those are really helpful, and I'll start there, and then I'll move up a little bit at a time as I gather more knowledge about it. And my interest in the Greek language comes from the fact that some of the symbols that we have in the hybrid orthography actually come from Greek. There's a symbol that looks kind of like an upside down Y, and that is called a lambda. And in Greek, it just makes it sounds like a D, just makes a D sound. In Haisla, it sounds like a D and an L combined, so it sounds like dl. So if you think of English words like madly, gladly, sadly, that's the lambda sound, that dl. So Haisla words like gliksam or quachtlo, quachtlo. That's the DL sound, that's the lambda symbol. That originates from the Greek alphabet. So that's the starting point that I always take with any language if I'm not familiar with it. I always start with the sounds first. And so that's a consistent way of learning. So I talk about the importance of consistency here on this first page. So consistent spelling leads to consistent pronunciation. And I feel personally that pronunciation is really important, not just in the Haisla language, but any language that you happen to be learning. So consistent spelling is a really big help in being able to help give people an idea of accurate pronunciation. So the hybrid orthography, one of the biggest benefits of it is that it consistently and accurately represents the sounds of Haisla. So there are sounds in the Haisla language that don't exist in English. So like if I said tlati, that clicking sound at the front of the word, that is called an ejective barred lambda. I talked about the lambda earlier. That sound doesn't exist in English. So using the ejective barred lambda is a consistent way of representing that unique sound. Instead of trying to use a combination of English consonants, using one symbol to represent that one sound is consistent. And once you associate that sound with that symbol, it becomes a lot easier. So one thing that when I'm talking about the language, I'm talking about the different symbols and what they're called. Sometimes it's difficult for me to actually think of the names of the symbols because I'm never thinking about what everything is called. I just think about the sound. So I don't think ejecta bar lambda. I don't think tilde L. I just think. So just that's the way that I've been learning, is associating the symbols with the sounds. It's always the same symbols. It's always one symbol for that one sound. So that is consistent. And that has been a big help in my learning as I continue to learn about the Haisla language. So there's been a lot of people talking about what is sometimes termed as phonetic spelling. That's actually not an accurate term. So it actually would be phonic spelling. And this is like spelling things the way it sounds to you. So
Is that in English? Is that like
yeah,
an English thing?
yeah. So phonetic spelling is not consistent because of the fact that if you're writing it the way it sounds, it's going to sound like that to you, but it might not, you might not be able to reflect that in the actual symbols of the English language. So that's one of the reasons why the hybrid orthography is very useful, is because it goes outside of the English alphabet. When you think of the English alphabet, there's 26 letters, but how many sounds are there in the English language? There's more than 26 sounds. So you're reusing a lot of the same letters and combinations of letters to try and represent other sounds.
2, 2, and 2.
Yeah. Yeah. So you run into some problems when you do that. So that's one of the problems with phonetic spelling, is the limitations of the English alphabet. There's 26. Yep.
I was just going to say, one thing that I saw on Facebook one time was someone was trying to ask how to spell Lati,
Mhm.
and there was tons of different responses. But it was really interesting to me because it gave me insight onto how people were hearing the word. Some of them spelled it Dlaty. Some spelled it Glotty. Some spelled it Dlatee. So there was like about 25 different responses. And it's just a good example of I'm a huge fan of all of your work that you do to help me be able to teach my granddaughter and give her something that I never had. These resources. I wish you guys could hear her in the back, because every time you say a word, Ab, she's copying you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's one of the reasons why having a standard writing system really works. So if you have a group of different people and ask them to write something down the way it sounds to them, you're going to get a lot of different variations on the same word. So then the question becomes, which one do you use? If you have like 24 different options, then which one do you go with? So
And
instead
then
of
the
doing
most
that,
important part, which one is your child going to understand? Like,
mhm,
and be able to repeat it and write it and then teach their children.
yeah.
Like, too many options. I like the new orthography.
Yeah.
One reason I like
So,
the new orthography too is because everything's consistently small and it
mhm,
flows a lot better. And they don't use a lot of the pauses in other languages. Like when I'm trying to read other languages, the upside down question mark thing really gets me. And a couple of their combinations really get me. And throughout knowing the hybrid orthography, when I'm
mhm,
learning other nations songs, I've actually been able to listen to all the sounds, adapt our orthography to it, and learn the songs that my friends want me to sing with them a lot faster.
mhm.
So I just thought that was really cool. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So inconsistency can be a problem because it can lead to confusion and uncertainty. So when you're learning a new language, there's already confusion and uncertainty. So if you have an inconsistent spelling system, you're adding to that confusion, adding to that uncertainty. So that's why a standard writing system is very helpful. And consistent spelling leads to better teaching and also better learning. So if you have one way of spelling something, we're able to share that, and it's going to be spelled the same way and pronounced the same way every time you teach it and every time somebody new learns it. And another benefit is that consistency equals predictability. So earlier on, Dustin was talking about being able to predict the meaning of different words, and also another thing that goes along with it is being able to predict how the words are going to sound. Because after you learn the symbols and the sounds that go along with the symbols, how those symbols interact with each other, you start to be able to call on that knowledge in your head, be able to recall it and bring it out a lot faster, a lot easier. So it becomes predictable. And when something is predictable, it's repeatable. So these are all reasons why consistency is very important in language learning. So that's the first key to language learning, is consistency. I'm just going to check on the chat here. Maureen asked if I'm able to share my slides after class. I can do that. The thing is, this presentation isn't finished yet, but I can share what I have so far. I think I can maybe send this to Nicole, and then she can send it out through email. That might be something that we can do. And then Haley says, this is great to better understand the language and how to learn it. Okay, yeah, that's good to hear. And that's why I'm doing this. I've taken a lot of time to think about not only the best way to learn the Haisla language, but the best way to teach it. Because of my background in teaching, I do have a bachelor's degree in education. So that is something that I spend a lot of time thinking about, is what is the best way to teach language and other subject matter that I might have some knowledge in. So I spend a great deal of time not only researching the language and finding out how it works, but also thinking about how to present it to people in a way that can be understood. So I think that's also very important. And that's the reason why I started making this presentation. So getting back to the slide here, a wise man named Axel Rose once said, you need a little patience. So the first question I have here is, how do you eat an elephant? The answer, one bite at a time. So when it comes to language learning or anything in general, there is the potential to overload yourself by trying to learn too much at once. So we all get excited about learning something new, and we might feel the urge to kind of just dive into it and really submerge ourselves in whatever subject we're studying at that point. But it is possible to take on too much and try to learn too much at once. So one of the keys in language learning is to pace yourself and take it slow. That can be a difficult thing to do. As I said, people get excited and your adrenaline's going and you're enjoying the process of learning something new. But if you can take that time and just kind of slow down, it's really going to help you in the long run. So patience applies to different things. So having patience in the process. So I talked about the way I learn languages. The reason that it works for me is because I've had time to develop this way of learning, and I have patience for just learning little things a little bit at a time. So I'm keeping in mind the whole process, what my overall goal is and how I'm going to get there. It's a little bit at a time. So I'm having patience in the process. Another big part of that is having patience with yourself. So you might get a little bit frustrated. It might feel like you're not learning as quickly as you want to. But Dustin was talking earlier about being kind to yourself. That's a big part of it, is having patience. So don't be in too big of a rush, too big of a hurry to learn a language or some other subject. Have some patience with yourself. If there's certain aspects that you're not really grasping, it's just going to take more time. So have that patience with yourself. Also keep in mind that it's all leading somewhere. So you have an overall goal in mind. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later on. And I'm going to break up this presentation and do a couple points per week. So somewhere later in my presentation, I'm going to be talking about having realistic expectations and setting achievable goals. And that's a big part of it, is having that patience and keeping in mind that it's all leading somewhere. So you might be just learning a little bit at a time, but that little bit of knowledge that you're learning every time is building up. So it's all going somewhere. And I find one of the most effective ways of learning something is to learn it in stages. So I talked about my learning process, the way I approach languages is I start off with the sounds because they're the smallest part of any language. So I learned the individual sounds, how they interact with each other. So for an example of one of the languages that I'm learning is Latin. So there's actually two different pronunciations of Latin. There's classical, which is what I tend to use, and there's ecclesiastical. So I usually tend to focus on one pronunciation, and then maybe later on, once I get a hang of the classical pronunciation, then I'll look at the ecclesiastical version of that. So learning in stages is very helpful, and making sure you fully understand each stage before you advance. So I think those are really helpful in terms of learning a language. So I'm going to shut down my PowerPoint here, and I'm just going to take another quick look at the chat to see if anybody else had any other questions or comments. And Haley said, thank you, Ab, it is helpful. So I'm really glad to hear that. It's good to know that I'm able to share a bit of my learning to help other people learn as well. And yeah, that just, it's really nice to hear that. And my overall vision for the language is I would like for all Haisla people to be able to speak the language, but not just speak it, but also be able to read it and write it and listen to the language as well, to be able to hear a fluent speaker saying something in the language or hear a recording and be able to follow along. That is going to be a great step for our people, because if we think about the state that our language is in, there is some danger of us actually losing the language. So that's another thing that kind of ties into patience, is just having the patience in yourself and not try to learn because you think time is running out, and not try to learn as much as you can, like right now, and try and rush through things. Because what I would like to see for the language is, I don't want it to just survive, I want it to thrive. I want it to be stronger than it's been in recent times. So I think this way of learning is really going to help people overall in their learning. So I think I talked in the past about building a foundation. So I have a foundation of knowledge about the language, like the sounds. So that's like the foundation of a building. The next stage was learning words, like how words are built in Haisla, the structure. So that's another level. So I'm building upon that foundation. And then from there, learning sentences is another level up. And then putting those together. Before you know it, you've built you have the start of a house. You have multiple levels, and it's all based on that foundation that you built upon early on in your learning. So that's my vision of the language. That's how I would like to see it being taught and how, for people to learn. So that's what I want to present this week, and I'll continue on next week, adding some more to the keys to learning Haislikella. So, wow.
Awesome, thank you, Ab. Is there any questions that anybody has for Ab? Is there any feelings anyone wants to share maybe? Because I know I get really emotional when I'm transcribing songs and stuff like that. And when the words are coming to me and I'm able to represent them within the, so this one I did this week. And that's the Killer Whale song. I know Mama O'Donna sings it, but I haven't had the chance to sit down with her. So I went on to the old recordings of the Mama'o singing, and while I was listening to them sing and writing it down to teach myself, I was really emotional. And I think it has to do with DNA cellular memory. And when you're waking up your DNA, all of this stuff is in our DNA. It's passed down from our grandparents and their grandparents and their grandparents. So it's there, and we just have to start activating it. And I think we get more powerful spiritually with every little bit that we start learning. Hey? So for me, I do get emotional when I'm working on language. Haley, you want to ask a question?
Oh, I was just gonna say to Ab that like his work is really helpful to kind of learn the language, because like for me, I'm a really slow learner, and I always like, people will tell me, oh, this is how something works, and it's just how it is. And I'm always like, why? Like, and then I don't understand it. But your explanation of like how the letters make certain sounds, and then how the I don't know, lambdas and stuff like that make certain sounds, make it easier to also like read the Heisler dictionary and know how to say something, instead of memorizing how people say it and then copying that, because like I can't remember that well. So yeah, thank you, Ab.
Yeah, thank you. Those are really encouraging words. So thanks.
Go ahead, Teresa.
I just wanted to say Anat Nagutla Ab for your perseverance and maintaining this hybrid orthography. I know it's been a challenge when you're met with like constant criticism about having this standardized way of spelling, when you're met with the rhetoric of our people didn't have a way to spell our language. But I think the bigger picture that a lot of people miss is that a majority of us, unfortunately, only read and speak English. So having a different way to differentiate and help our brain separate English from our own language, it really is a game changer once you understand the orthography and understand those symbols and what they represent and what sounds they actually represent. Because going through the trenches with you for a little while there, and remembering that the English letter combinations just didn't do our language the proper justice. Yeah, it's been great to watch the evolution of our language, and thank you for persevering through that, because it's really helped me gain a better understanding of being able to read and write in our language too. So thank you.
Yeah. And I wanted to thank you, Teresa, because Dustin mentioned a few weeks ago that this, like the work in the language and the culture in our community really came as a result of the work that you were doing early on. And it was really a good opportunity when I got a chance to start working with you, because I believed in what you were doing, and I could see where you were trying to go with the language, and I believed in you personally. So having an opportunity to be there along with you, and to see that start to happen, and as you mentioned, we were really the first ones. So you were there at the start of my learning journey into English and how that actually happened. So you've seen the progress that I've made in that journey, and you've always been really supportive of me, and that's been a great help to me as well. So I wanted to thank you for doing the work that you started off doing in the culture and language department, and the work that you continue to do. And yeah, so I wanted to thank you too.
And for community too, Teresa. You secured so much funding to help revitalize our language. There's so many people that were able to access the mentor apprenticeship program because of your commitment, and we'll forever be grateful.
Yeah, speaking from your former assistant, there's no way I was able to fill your shoes with all the computer tech and writing grants and doing all that stuff, and witnessing you meeting everybody and juggling what you wanted to do originally was a language. I always tell your legend everywhere I go, and tell people what kind of worker you'd be if they're ever to be lucky enough to have you. So thank you again. And one thing I wanted to mention about the way he specifically teaches. When I came in, I wanted to go from 0 to 90. It's just the way I am. I jump into things head first and kind of think about it after, I guess. But I honestly never thought, and I said this at my interview with Teresa, that I wouldn't speak Haisla. I didn't believe in it, because for years when I was working at the Elder Center, until that job was taken from me, I was documenting in English all of this stuff. Then when I read my own writing, I was like, that's not what I wrote down, because it would come out so butchered. And I'm like, how did you pronounce this again? And I'd have to ask them how they pronounced it, and I'd write it down. Even the time I got with my gran, I would do the same thing. And I didn't really realize the work that had been done in the past. And now I could actually read all 3 representations of ours, including the 4th one now, which is the hybrid orthography, and the standardized one. So it's really rare that that I was able to get the chance into that world to be able to start deciphering all of these different ones. And the way that Ab teaches you is he's making you your own teacher. So as he's saying, be gentle with yourself in the beginning. It's because once you get the single sounds down, then you get the vowel combinations down, and then you get to add them all together. Then you toss in the tilde L, and so on, the lambda, the barred lambda, and then the ejected barred lambda, and the rounded consonants. It's really simple to remember this, because once you understand it the way he's teaching you, you're going to sit with that for a while, and you might make a little bit mistakes, but then you go to the exercises of the sounding out those long words that he had taught you, and then it's all coming in to basically reprogram your mind. And I got to a point with Ab saying, handwriting, what is our biggest tool these days? We can handwrite. And I myself took the old orthography, and these are some of the stories. I handwritten all of them. So I have basically all of them out here. And then I was able to type them down into the computer with the keyboard, because I knew the single sounds, I knew the vowel combinations, I knew the acute accent markers, the apostrophes, and all of everything that Ab has taught me. So I was able to allow myself, I never wanted to go on there. Out of making one bad habit, you'll have a hard time taking that bad habit away. So being slow and gentle again. So as I started reading those stories, I started looking at the connecting sentences like K and kun, geese. And then I said, I better start mapping those out. So I started putting them there. And as I was going through the stories, I would try guess in English what they're trying to describe. Then these started giving me hints to bigger parts of the language that I don't want to talk about just yet because I might teach you wrong. I'll wait till I fully understand this. But there's indications on location and basically time specific things that are preset in a lot of the connector ones. So for example, I could use K for the, but I could also use it for to, and, what, if, and it's depending on what's surrounding it. So these start giving you different clues as to essentially what you're talking about. Then I thought I was making this huge breakthrough. So I was like, you got to come check this out, thinking maybe I could teach him something finally. He's like, that's good. I'm going to show you something now. And he pulls out the document that has everything that I wanted. So when I got to that level, I showed well, first of all, the smarts of decoding the language, because as it's place specific, time specific, and ownership specific, once you put all those factors together, again, this big language gets a lot smaller, and the written language gets a heck of a lot easier because for me, the example having an I at the end of a word tells me that it's either in the past or away or a he. So that'll be prefixed in the K, which will mean the, instead of if there's two people there, which you would probably use co. And that changes who's looking at it as well. So I know it sounds really big, but the more that you start, as Megan would say, leveling up as a Heisler, that was one of her really good quotes. The language gets really small. So last night I was actually able to read and sound out comfortably the longest I have. It was probably about 7 pages from beginning to end. And since haven't worked in a long time, it's, first of all, it was kind of a healing journey for me, being able to do what was taken. And even these things, being able to provide this for, I would do, like I am doing it for free. So you can't take that passion away and can't restrict anything from me teaching whatever is taught to me. This is our duty as Heinzlers to be able to teach everybody in a handsome way. And I believe that we have everyone here to really make a really good episode every time we come back. Like Teresa, she's an amazing storyteller, like really good. I taught a lesson today at Heisla Land in the Nechako school, and they were all talking about Teresa's story. Yeah, we all heard the Heisla origin story, so I was able to use the interactive map, bring it to where it was, and then basically backtrack her story through visuals now. So, well,
I like your frog story, Teresa.
I think she said she might be able to tell stories today too.
The frog story always makes me laugh.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
So it's 8:06. Do you guys want to take a washroom break, maybe snack break? I know a lot of people.
Colquenix has her hand up.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that.
Oh,
Thank you for noticing someone.
I didn't see it on this end. My apologies.
sorry.
It's all good. So I have a few questions, and then before we break, I have that poem again
Okay.
about our language. So when I first started deciding to learn Heisla, I wrote down a list of words that I already knew just from growing up in the village, and it actually ended up being quite a bit. And I think that most people, when they think about the language, most people, unless they're fluent speakers, don't think they know much growing up there. And I'm like, do you know Yauts? Do you know Babao? Do you know Mamao? Do you know Ekome? Do you know Anana? Do you know Gaostua? Do you know, like, and there's all these just like household things that we say. And it ended up being about 20 or so words that I ended up knowing without realizing. And so I always remembered that, and I would encourage folks to do a similar experiment to see how many you actually know. If you think, oh no, I only know one word, you probably know at least 10, maybe up to 20, just from being around. And it was interesting in the language group in Vancouver that Nicole did for a while. Forgetting her last name right now. And
So
yeah, and some of our Gikulut who grew up in the city or who were raised in Care, who were coming to these language classes, and sayings that we had that we just grew up with, that I was trying to translate to them what it meant, and some of us like who grew up in the village were looking at, we're like, how would you? So my question is, what does gaostua mean? That was one of the things that we just like grew up saying, but like gaostua, the closest thing I can come to what it feels like to me is like saying, oh my goodness. But is there an actual translation, and are we saying it right?
I'm not sure. It doesn't sound familiar to me, but I can probably look into that and see if I can come up with anything.
Mm-hmm.
I
Wonder if
asked my
that-
granny Frida what that meant, and your translation is the closest that you could possibly get to it. It was, oh my goodness. Like and obviously you can say it in different tones and it carries the same way. It's pretty much our equivalent to oh my goodness, or like gasp, like like that's your initial reaction.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones too that make me laugh is hohoi, or
Yeah.
even maybe just slang is neh. My kids, I did this like Facebook survey with them one time, and all of them, when they were asked something that mom says all the time, and it was neh and hohoi.
And I yeah.
Or ani ganu.
Or kesu or godas. Mm-hmm. My other question, and I don't know, maybe this can't be answered right away, but I lived in Hawaii for a while, and I learned some basic Hawaiian words because everything there is in Hawaiian, all the street names and things like that. So you have to learn how to read Hawaiian in order to live there, essentially, and it's very simple. It was like 12 letters in the language. And they have a thing, and maybe you touched on this earlier. I was trying to listen to it when you were sharing in your language lesson, where when they want to describe something as being lots, they say nui. So aloha nui would be like big aloha. So pono is their word for righteous, and they often use it as being like in righteousness with the aina, which is land. So pono aina. So pono aina nui would be like very much in righteousness with the land. So do we have a similar thing that we could add on or somewhere in it, or does it vary from word to word if we wanted to like make something bigger, I guess, or emphasize it?
I
Yeah,
think she's asking about connecting suffixes and stuff like that.
yeah,
Micro sentences.
it would depend on the situation. Like, where are you when you're talking about the land, or who are you talking to about the land, and where are they at the time? So yeah, Dustin was talking about the language being very time specific and or time sensitive and location specific. So those are the things that go into highest sentences. So an example of that is when people introduce themselves, you'll hear either kia kalinti moti chai or kia kalinti moti giach. So the difference between them is the giach means here. So if I were introducing myself right now, I would say kia kalinti moti giach. That means I'm from Timota and I'm there now. Whereas if I were in town, then I would say kia kalinti moti chai. That means I'm from Kitimat Village and from Snag Beach, but it's over there. I'm not there at the moment. So yeah, it gets a little bit tricky because you have to think about how you're going to talk about that land when you're not actually there, as opposed to when you are there in that specific area of land. So yeah, I kind of get the basic idea, but you would have to narrow it down to like a specific situation to really get the full sense of it.
Yeah, another example of that too is my grand Frida said that when you say like the one of the words you just used was Nicole was eganu, and that was saying, oh, you poor little thing. But if you were saying kesu, it'd be like, you poor big thing, you poor big person. So yeah, it sounds like it's a very much a situational kind of thing. So that really opened my eyes to how complex our language can really be in describing those types of things.
So I was trying to transcribe a new song I'm writing. I was trying to look for the word you and how to use that. And the deeper I was digging, I was finding connecting words that mean like for you and exactly what I want. So I had a very primitive sentence built. It worked from what I was looking at. Especially for song. And the melody was there where it carried, nothing conflicted with each other. So my assumption said it was working. Then as I did a little bit more research I think I did research for about 3 hours last night. I just got really addicted to it because I was making big breakthroughs. And then now my song looks completely different. It's cleaned up. It's from here, a sentence this long, I'm able to express in this much now. And that's what I believe is one of the best things about this hybrid orthography. You're taking out like for us, it would be typically an LTH, like an athlete. And that's where you'd find it in English. Now that was an old representation that we had. Now we have a tilde L, which I write them like that. And that way, some of them are just a little squiggly line. I do like that just so when I don't mistaken it for T's as I'm reading, and that just makes that one sound. So if you're looking at the written language, what used to be this long, just in that one aspect, is now shortened down this much. Then you look at the other symbols that are there, will be shortened down to there. So a lot of the other languages, you see people using capitals. The reason that was discussed that it'll all be like this, as Ab was saying, the all small lowercase, is because of the flow. And then it's not attacking your eyes, because you could interpret a big X as a really hard one, and that might not be the function of it at all. So for me, there's too much visual coding in that little bit. Whereas if you simplify and you make one single sound that will never change, represented by that tilde L, as we call it, then it takes, like you see some of the old words, and when they're transcribed over, they're about that short, and the flow is a lot easier. And once you understand that that's one sound, for the example, the ejected barred lambda was like this. Oh, hold on. So it was like that. Now, if you didn't know, the ejective barred lambda is like this. So when you're looking at this one, if you put consonants and vowels in front of it and consonants and vowels at the end, you could take this as basically an accent pause. Now, if you're doing that, your basically mind has taken that coding, separated those two sounds, which are supposed to be one, and that will take you years to be able to train away from because you've taken years on teaching yourself that. So now what is a and a big word will just be one single one now. And that's the sound it makes. So even the way it looks kind of looks intimidating. It's not really. Once you associate it, it's just the coding hits like this right away. So when you're reading the rest of it, it starts flowing in a way where you're going to be able to do what I do in this book. You're going to be able to compose your own songs. You're actually going to be able to go to other languages. Like Ab and I wanted to get better understanding exactly on how our language works. So we were looking at other languages around the world. We'd actually meet and go to different languages. And the best example I could find was Japanese. And it's because they literally say what would be like chikwa nuwa in Japanese. However, they said apple and me. Well, what are you going to do with that apple? you're going to eat it, and it's just assumed. So the way that their language works and it's blunt like that is how ours is as well. So then you elaborate by actually putting a little bit more context into it with the location, and that's how you've just built a little more elegant sentence with those two words. Eh? It's really cool. And when you start making your own breakthroughs and come start teaching people as well, is when you get to see it really pay off. Because I doubted myself for quite a while, and then I went over to a friend's house and he had the old representation of Hind Vink, and I was like, man, you're learning the hard way, because that representation, like, I have to rub my head just to, because seeing it, it's so it attacks your mind way too much. There's not enough spaces in between. And then with the introduction of the schwa, it made it a lot more elegant in the representation. And then Emin Bach actually made really great flow within the language. And then Ab had studied all of them. We used to go over all of this at our work and go and do like word breakdowns and stuff like that, and then related words and guessing and seeing what those words were. It just starts really coding so much faster. So I know, again, that looks like so much, but after learning the single sounds and then going into the vowel combinations and then the symbols, you're at a really good head start. And then keep sounding them out and doing the backwards to forwards technique, because you could do that really big word and you go from the back of the word and then you get to the beginning of the word and you're just using two vowels and consonants at the same time and extending it back. And by the time you get to the beginning, you've basically built the entire muscle reflex. So as guitar player, myself and Ab have a theory that the reason that we've actually gotten really far on it is because the amount of information our brains are able to take in with the complex songs that we've been practicing on guitars for years. So we also get an extra advantage on the melodies within the language, because when we talk to other nations, they're always saying it sounds like we're singing like that when we're speaking proper, right? So, well, I think we can meet back at 8:30. Okay, see you guys in a bit. All right, welcome back. So I actually feel comfortable enough today. I chewed on a weak S before. I noticed I was a bit nervous at the beginning of this episode, and I feel like there's a lot of spirits around me all the time trying to tell me information to best express myself. So I got some support from Nicole over this, and that's one thing I decided to do for myself, was to chew on a weak S to get my words again and cleanse my mouth and my vocal cords and everything. So Ab had brought me the songs of the Mama'o singing, and Mama'o Donna still sings it, but you won't hear a man sing it in the tenor tones. When I was talking to one of my mentors who lives in the Numgis Nation, he said they specifically let the females keep the songs where the guys were banished from singing them. And that way, when the songs got returned to the males, they all sang and harmonized with the females. But we're, as males, supposed to harmonize with our second set of vocal cords that we have here. They activate and they vibrate like that with the drum. So since I've done a series of cleanses to get my voice, that's how my voice is really deep when I sing. It's through the cleanses that I did. It wasn't from practicing. I basically came out of that water after the cleanse and I was able to sing. So I've always wanted to sing this song, and I've listened to Mama O'Donna sing it over and over and over, but I was never able to get a clear enough recording for it to be transcribed down in the way it is now. So this is what I did to transcribe the song the best ability that I could, and it seems to hold up pretty well. I showed it to my teacher, and he never corrected anything right off the bat that I see. So there is one word, it's mektuth. I don't think that's actually the word. I think the recording kind of split there. So that's the only questionable part I have in there. And I'd like to sing you the song on my frog drum that Ab had painted for me. I had made the drum. So this is a killer whale song. What do you guys think of that with the tenor voice?
It makes it feel kind of like deep, like the ocean.
That's what it felt like to me, like you're paddling, eh?
Mm-hmm.
It sounded really cool. I like that one. How did it sound on there? Was it too fuzzy? I tried to be as low as I could.
Sounded pretty good. I
Yeah,
just
it wasn't breaking up.
nope. I just turned it up on my end a little bit. It actually, I don't know. They're both good when you stand up like that. When you go back there, it's good.
Yeah.
And this way is good too.
Okay, you guys want to hear more songs? Nicole could sing tons.
We like it when you sing.
Okay. What do you want to hear? I'll sing one. Hoo-ya, hoo-yay.
Oh yeah.
So this one, the hoo-ya, hoo-yay is when the sandpiper flies in and it's going like that. That's what I was told that that means. And then when it's why you Tlaquagila Galets Ompa is Tlaquagila is a copper, Galeds is ancient ones, and the Ompa is a forefathers, and it's basically honoring your forefathers of the copper chiefs. So in the Kitlope, we actually smelted copper as well. We would dig down holes and make our kilns in there, and we'd hand blow to heat it up. And that's how we made our primitive copper in the Kitlope. And that's one common thing of the big house people. Everyone that had big houses had big copper shields, and they were very significant when they came into the times of feasting. Hoo-ya, hoo-yay, hoo-ya. Hoo-ya, hoo-yay, hoo-ya, hoo-ya, ya, hoo-ya, 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 hoo-yay, hoo-ya, ya, hoo-ya, 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 hoo-yay, yo, yo, yo. Oh, hey, hoo-ya, hoo-yay, hoo-ya, hoo-yay, yo, 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 oh, hey. Hoo-ya, hoo-yay, hoo-ya, hoo-ya, hoo-yay, hoo-ya, hoo-ya, ya. Hoo-ya, 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 hoo-yay. Hoo-ya, ya. Hoo-ya, 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 hoo-yay. Yo, 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 oh, hey. Willem Scrumpshay Kaswa, Willem Scrumpshay Kaswa, why you Tlaquagila Galadzomba? Yo, 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 oh, hey. Willem Scrumpshay Kaswa, Willem Scrumpshay Kaswa. Why, ya, ya, Tlaquagila Galadzomba. Why, ya, ya, Tlaquagila people stand up and they basically pair up and they walk around like this. And then when you go, yo, they all have to do that. And what I was told is because the sandpiper flew around after Oolican season, and when the Oolicans were spawned out, they would look over to their left, they would pick up the Oolicans there, they'd pick up the Oolicans on the right and in front of them, and then they'd go like this and put it down their throat. So that comes from that, being told that. So any more requests?
I have a question about that song. So
Yeah.
I remember when I was part of the Spirit of Kitlope Dancers in my early teens, we did what I thought was a sandpiper song, and I only did it once or twice, where we were on different sides facing each other, and then we'd go across and then dip down when we were going and trade sides. And then
maybe that's the Grease Trail song, because they did kind of that, but they would go like this, go down like that. The Grease Trail song from the Numgies, and it sounds like ours. But I don't know. I remember being up there too, dancing. That was fun.
I saw that Huya was at a big orange shirt day. No, it was a June 21st gathering in Victoria in this huge field, and there must have been hundreds of people. It was really, really powerful.
Yeah, so that song goes all the way up to Tlingit. They sing that up there, and the variations break apart to the nations that they go to, and then the song holders that carry them. Some song holders might know the short version, just the huya huye, and they might not know the words part because they're still learning it. So it doesn't make any song more right than the others as we go along too. And things get lost, especially with back in those days, you'd have marriages. That marriage would give you the right to sing certain songs and perform certain dances in our big house. And then you have the secret societies and their types of songs. They would come up like to Kitimat, and when they lifted a certain amulet or held a certain staff, they knew immediately that they were welcome onto shore, and they were going to basically do what right now we would be doing as winter ceremony in our big house. We would be telling all the stories, and with the stories came the songs. So I could sing that. I sang you guys that Fire Eater song, and that had come from that story of witnessing that guy being able to jump in and out of that fire. Okay? And that crazy kid that was in, they call it the Crazy Man dance, basically, in the New Hulk. And when we went there, we're lucky enough that there was an intermarriage, and Margaret Cy Wallace, which was related to the Hall family, and then the Hall and Paul family were split up and put in different last names. So one is Hall and one is Paul. Essentially, it's the same family. She went over, and she had, I think, 5 big chiefs that was behind her and her bloodline. And she went over with a lot of those songs, and we're lucky enough because basically myself and Preston sing that Fire Eater song. No one else sings it. And when we went out there, Preston happened to be there with us. He was with Mother. And because that's the Kitlope extended family that went over that way. So they invited all the Kitlope people, and we went there and they danced that song around us. And it was so emotional. Myself, Megan, Teresa, Coralie, there was so many people there that got to witness finally that. And then we could bring that back, right? So I do know the Oolican song as well. There's proper protocols that are supposed to happen prior to receiving the song back. It's supposed to be 3 feasts that we uphold for them. So part of the protocol is going in and meeting them, which has been happened. We're allowed to go, we were invited into their territory to attend their big house. And one of my life goals is to hit a log drum, because we had log drums here too. We would typically have them in our big houses, and we would have, I believe, a recreational big house specifically for the dances and all of the feasting. Then the chiefs would also have their big house with their extended family in it. And then the seating arrangements would be, let's say the chief is at the back end, then he would have all his boxes containing all his ceremonial items. In there would be his regalia, his rattle, probably his staff leaned up against it, and then anything ceremonial is in his boxes. That would be his door, basically, or his wall. And then he would put furs and different furs up. So when you see people joking around on Facebook, when they put up a door and they put a sheet over it, that is ancestral. We did that to divide our rooms up. So that's where basically that comes from, and that's good for us still, because that's what we used to do, hanging furs and stuff to divide our spaces. Then underneath there would be the chief's probably daughter, and then brothers off to the side, and they're all guarded. And the big house was divided up with all the different families. Then that was the big chief's big house. And then you would have the sub chiefs. The sub chiefs would have their big houses on the different parts of the land broken up on the wakiwis. So it's really interesting when you're getting into a lot of the older teachings. I was really lucky that Dan Paul was able to evade the residential school systems, and he worked as a child. So he got to see the generation that we will never get to see. And you could imagine how those individuals live. This is like prior to contact. So it wasn't that long ago. And we're some of the last colonized places. I believe it was the Gitxsan that were the very last people in BC. They already had the northern regions mapped in BC, and then they came up this way. And so we are only, our great grandparents' generation is when contact and stuff was happening. It's not hundreds of years old. Like Kitimat's only what, 54 to 56 years old. We have elders older than Kitimat. So that gives precedent to what we've had to live in this short amount of time. And the most beautiful thing about it is we have all the people in this little thing that has everything that was trying to be taken. And that's what we represent now. So the willingness to learn is the hugest thing. If you didn't want to learn, my Baba would say, okay, guys, story time. If you can't sit still and you can't not talk, just go play somewhere. It'd typically be me, Trent, Coralie, sometimes the other grandkids if they weren't hyperactive at the time, but that's how you got told it. So they would always try retell you stories, is because your story started off this small. When you're looking at Billy Hall and the Sasquatch, I learned it that he went over there and he shot that Sasquatch right over there. So they showed me the location, told me the story, built the insight in my mind. And then when my Baba came home after being at Baba Cecil's Ulican camp playing cards all night, he would come over and tell us stories and be like, tell the Billy Hall story. And then he started telling me about when he went hunting, putting the sticks down in the ground. And before you know it, years go by and it turns into about a 20-minute story if you do it justice. So then each family that held those do have the right to tell them if they're trained in the story. That's what gives you the right to be able to tell all of these stories, is that you're literally trained to do that. The middle, they would always say Nosta, to let the storyteller know that he's doing a good job, he's capturing our intention and it's good, continue. And when it came to a pause, the storytellers would pause for a bit, let it all absorb in. And they were waiting for a response, meaning K, like it means many or more, or a bunch of things that they want you to continue with more words. So it's really cool seeing just and then if you don't know, our stories are so important. Our entire laws are based on the laws of karma. So there are karmic laws that attach to the land, the animals, and how you handsomely treat the waking world, which is the plants, the animals, like everything. And that's why it was so important. We talked about that salmon ceremony. That's what was so important. Now let's talk about the Ulikins and the proper protocol that's supposed to happen out there. Like back in the day, there was opening ceremonies. If you went up that river, especially when both my Babas were there, like there would be basically a meeting and being told that there's to be no one up and down the river, especially nothing shot around the river or the mouth of where the Ulikin want to come in, because they stay in a certain temperature as the tide goes up and down, waiting to find out if they want to run up that year or not. So if there's too much traffic on the river, if there's hunting going on up the river, especially seals on the rocks around there, the Oolikins will just take off and they won't come. So what's interesting, I'm on the board of Rediscovery International, and I work with Tom Henley in certain fields. But he was talking about the origins of the Oolikin coming from Haida Gwaii. Now it's not my full story to tell, nor is it from my nation, but they weren't treated proper according to the story I was told, and they never came back there. So if you look at the Kitimat River, I was teaching this in this cultural awareness in the school that I was running through today. The reason we had Urakan shut down is because they sucked up so much water that they sucked the Oolikin straight into their pipes, and then they had to clean everything out of their machinery. So that the Urakan shutdown used to coincide with when the Oolikins used to go up there. Now the Oolikins don't go there anymore, and we have to go into neighboring Wet'suwet'en. So there was certain protocols of even eating the first catch, and every family knew was never to blow on the first bite that you're going to take. You never grab it, go like this and bite, blow on it. You're going to blow the runaway, they said. So you'd always just grab it and eat it like that. Then if females were around there and their moon cycle was on, they would have to go into around Muscusa. So they'd leave from Camano, go up to Muscusa with their canoes, and basically do a ceremony on a rock to basically apologize. From my interpretation of the document I was reading, was to basically wash that away again and basically apologize to the Oolikins for being around at that time, which is not anybody's fault, but that's just what they used to do back then. So through my transcribing, I was wondering why all our old songs aren't being sung anymore. So I think my specialty really in this ancestral ways is breathing life into things. And this song, I don't believe anybody sings. I haven't heard anybody sing it. And it took me, I think it was about 3 months when I first started. So that killer whale song, where I'm at now in my advancement of hearing the single sounds, hearing vowel combinations, that's what gives me the ability to transcribe these really fast. Back then, I didn't have nearly as close to the skill I had now. So it took me a long time. I don't know the name of this song. It never came with one, but I sang it to my granny Maisie, Louisa Smith, for those. I think Maisie's just our pet family name for her. But I sang it to her, and there's one part where it's like hiya, hello, ho, oh, hello, ho. And the females reversed it in a back end of the chants, and it sounded so cool. I looked at her and I was just really impressed that I got to learn a little bit more by bringing this song back, and she was ever so proud of me for continuing with all of this work that I do. Hiya, hello, oh, oh, hello, oh, hiya, hello, oh, oh, hello, oh, hiya, hello, oh, oh, hello, oh, hiya, hello, oh, oh, hello. Saxons, oh, hello, oh, Oxy Wagons, oh, hello, oh, Ostinians, oh, hello, oh, hiya, hello, oh, oh, hello. Hiya, hello, oh, anything about that song. I just loved it. And I kept on listening to it over and over and over again from a really deteriorated recording. But for me, it's possible to bring these things back and breathe new life into that. So the next song is my honor to Wahed, my Baba Cecil. He had asked me to basically paddle his magic canoe after he was gone. That's very symbolic of what he had asked of me to take his name. And he asked me down at the mall. And I got on one knee right in front of everybody. I didn't care, and I honored that. And I said, yes, I will. He asked me if I was strong enough as a Haisla to take on the name. And I said, I do believe so. And I can walk handsomely. I'll walk softly, tell my truth, and I could be handsome. So knowing his time was coming up, because he asked me that, I wanted to compose him a song. I wasn't even a singer at that time. I had just got gifted my first drum, and I didn't even know how to sing. So as I was in the culture and language department, Granny Vera was there, and I'd ask her, how would I say this? How would I say that? And then I'd write it down. Sometimes even at that point, I couldn't do it. So I'd have to get Ab to come with me, and he would write it down for me at that time. So I was able to take all of what Granny Vera had said to me, broken up, segmented, and I mixed it all together into this song to honor my Baba Cecil. Way, way, oh, way, hey, hey, oh. Noach, my ass again. Clack, yes, Gil. We the importance of Dan Paul, Gupskoleth, and Wahid, Cecil Paul, was that they were the last full-blooded, what they referred to as Chinoxula. They were the last full-blooded men. Now we have our Granny Louisa and our Granny Vieta, and they're the last Chinoxula purebloods that this world will ever see. So I think we're living in a time where it's very interesting to see where we're going with things, and people like me that could breathe life into a lot of the old stuff. And that's how I got my name, Old Man. I was just an old man. Took in a lot of information being young, and now I'm sitting here being able to basically facilitate things like this with the help of everybody here, putting all these people together to be able to get a one-stop shop learning that is, I believe it's really fun. It's fun for me. And when we're able to watch back the videos, now everyone will be able to drum along and start learning those songs, because it's going to take a while to feel comfortable with singing. And an elder had said, if you're afraid to sing with your drum, it means you're afraid to use your voice in real life. So don't ever be afraid to use your voice. And that's part of our Nuyem. You have to speak your truth all the time, even if it gets you in harm. The truth is the truth is the truth. So is there any songs that people know I could sing that want to hear before I storytell? Or does anyone want to sing any other songs? How about this? After we're done, I do know other nation songs. I'm not willing to sing them here and put them on recordings, even though I can introduce them and stuff. I just want to respect that they're their songs and stuff like that. But I
I
took
have
my
a
boy.
song I could sing quickly.
Oh, go ahead. What?
I have a song I could sing quickly.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The song I wrote for my granddaughter, and it is a song that about our Nuyem and our responsibilities to one another. And the purpose of the song is for when me and my granddaughter start our days, is to start our day with purpose and alignment with all of our relations in the four directions. And it is about the council of animals, the spirit of the forest, the plants, and our unique roles that each of us play in society. By honoring our responsibilities and upholding our commitments to our ancestors, the council of animals, the spirit of the forest, Suda, we're living our life's purpose. And by upholding our commitments, we're in turn creating an environment for our family, our clan, our friends, and community to thrive. It's important to reflect upon communities as they are now. We have visitors and other nationalities that call our ancestral lands home now, and it's important that they too uphold our ancestral ways of being. Peace, equity, inclusion, and purpose, and also bring their ancient knowledge to the table as well, to co-create a universe, but first, a community. By honoring our roles and being accountable to our unique responsibilities to our families who contribute to the health and wellness of community. This is the origins of the song. It's calling forth the goodness in each of these roles in the four directions and declaring, I'm ready for my next work task, my next step to be unveiled to me, so that I can help the universe by upholding my commitments and responsibilities, which will help, in turn, collective consciousness, the council of animals, the plants, the four-legged, the two-legged, Suda, the spirit of the forest. And by practicing this, we can achieve a vision of peace, equity, inclusion, and purpose, a thriving future for the children. And what I was taught in our Nuyem is our children are the greatest value because they're our future. So the song was written by both me and Auntie Betts, and it's pretty basic. Ixnakwa, good morning. Masi, eggs, halaflunts, What type of work can I do next? I'm ready for my work. I'm ready for the next step. Ixnaqua, 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 Masi Ix Palafans, Yawatagnis, to help one another. Ixnaqua, 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 Masi Ix Palafans, Yawatagnis. Ixnaqua, 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 Masi Ix Palafans, Yawatamis. Oh, I gotta go see baby. We'll be back.
Awesome. That was really good. I enjoyed that one. Does anybody else feel comfortable to sing a song?
There's ones I can sing, but I'll share it when we're not being recorded.
Okay. I'm
I'll
gonna
share
sing.
one.
Oh, awesome. There we go.
Uh,
Jam night going on. Winter ceremony right here.
Um, well, I was told by a fluent elder that in order to learn our language, one of the best ways to learn all the sounds represented in our language was to learn how to count from 1 to 10. And so, and having a young one, Lyric, who was so keen on learning our language, I started singing along to the tune of Happy Birthday. And that's how I taught her and myself how to count. So just goes Noch matloch yuduch, muchsik yoch katloch, machlos yudachos, muchos kapu. And then I have another song that I had composed to teach children, and it's currently sung in the schools. It's currently sung at the culture camps, and it's a berry picking song. And I don't even know if I can remember it myself. I might need Lyric to help me. Can you sing it with me, Lyric? Putting her on the spot here. E buxum guadam golali, la kachagi bat golali, sia konach esina golali, guachlam sisachen golali, galuch galuch. So those are all the berries that you can pick in our area. And then at the end, saying galuch galuch was something that was said when the very first salmonberry was found in our area, or whoever had found their first salmonberry would yell out galuch galuch, kind of as like a small celebration. What?
Awesome. I think the last one I'll sing is The Sun Sets Over the World. I'm not the best at it. I sing a slower kind of version as I was told by people. I like the way I sing it though. I like the slow melody. And it's amazing with Rediscovery International how one nation sings the songs of rediscovery to another nation, to another. And since it goes across Canada, David told me all the variations that go across Canada. So how one person sings a song is probably the best way they feel it in their heart. When the sun sets over the world, I'll be thinking of you. I know you are far away. No matter where you are, Well, still love you just the same way. Hey, ya, ho. When the stars are shining so bright, I'll be thinking of you. I know you are far away, no matter where you are. I'll still love you just the same way. Hey, ho. When the eagles are flying so high, I'll be thinking of you. I know you are far away, no matter where you are. I'll still love you just the same way. Hey, ho. When the wolves are howling at night, I'll be thinking of you. I know you are far away, no matter where you are. I'll still love you just the same way. Hey, oh. Wow. So I mixed up the verses there. I was supposed to go with the Eagles, but I had a cat meowing at me and my phone going off. So I just corrected it after. It's supposed to be the Eagles are flying so high and then the stars at night. And that last verse is the rendition that the New Hulk sing with the wolves howling. Do you guys want to take maybe a 5-minute break? Yeah. Awesome.
Okay, I have a song I could share.
Awesome. Like I said too, after if people want to stay on after the recording is done, I have a bunch I could sing. I could sing for hours. So
This song came to me a while ago while I was away traveling on my way home for Auntie Cindy's feast. And that was the first time that I sang it for our community. I also gifted it. I gifted my sister Takai Blaney permission to use it and call it We Shall Thrive. And I eventually want to learn it in Haisla. Can you hear the drum?
was awesome. Reminded me of the Kitlope, being on the Kitlope Lake. I swear there was one song that you sang. I can't remember what gathering it was. I think it was a rapid word collection. And I went up to you after and I said, wow, I haven't heard that one since the Kitlope. And I was so excited. And you were like, I just wrote that song. And I was like, really? I swear. Maybe it was a spiritual thing from the Kitlope or whatnot. But I did write down your English verses to that. And this is the importance of having these types of books. You see how I put these things down? There's many ways of saying we, but you might have to modify it to us unless you could find a specific one. But I would like to help you with your goal there if you let me to help transcribe it into our language. Then I'm gonna have to take that to Ab and okay everything from him as well too. So it won't be just me, it'll be a group effort, and then we could actually probably take that into a teaching tool on how to structure, how the sentence structures are the easiest way to represent those melodies, eh?
I remember when songs first started coming to me, I
Yeah.
wondered if they were returning. And when I sang it, the couple of times I've gotten to sing it for our ukulele, I always would say, if any of the elders recognize this song, let me know. And that, I think that one was either the Coming of Big Change or the River Warrior song that you were able to sing along with me with.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I wonder if that was like somewhere, one of the spirits from deep in the Kitlope, one of the ancestors used my voice to.
That's what they say. You'll hear it on the wind. The wind will bring it into you. And when you ask the universe for that, they're going to be there. So our AMB, our ancestors that have come before us, are actually here all the time. So when you hear my voice hone in onto the drum, I'm actually honing in and basically channeling them as per what my teacher had taught me. So I didn't get too much time with my teacher. He lives in a different place. He's not so much, he's like me, doesn't really like the online world all so much, let's say. We like the ancient ways kind of stuff. But myself, I think it's important to be doing what we're doing, specifically because it's so unique to all of our Nuyems together and combined, eh? And these personalities here, when I rewatch these videos, sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, how did I get all of those, everything they were asking, and still kind of just flow with it? And it's basically listening. Our biggest thing in our ancestral ways is devout listening to our grandparents. So most of us in the olden ways are raised by our grandparents while the families went out to harvest and do all the work. We'd be set with the grandparents. I'd be mainly our school. So we'd learn all of that. And you see everyone that was raised by their grandparents have that special light behind them all the time. I've noticed that in a lot of different people. So I'm not too sure if Teresa has the energy to tell the mother of the wolf story today. If not, that's completely fine. She's probably like, ah. So I'm going to take you guys into the interactive map and show you the location of this story. I won't need to read off it. I'll be able to say it all off the top of my head. So when we come into our territory, we're at the northern tip here. And you see the place names around the territories. We still have Natlabila. They call it Nalabila in English. We have Wadeen, Large Wadeen and Little Wadeen.
I don't think we could. Did you try to do a screen share?
Oh, yes, you guys are just watching me, aren't you?
Yep. And B was still trying to sing your song.
Aw.
She came in and she was trying to give you hummus.
Aw.
Gonna kiss you.
Yeah.
So down in the northern tip of our region here,
Such a bother.
hum.
There he is, right there. Yout.
Yout.
Babaoons. Yout, babaoons. baby Corley Nugwa.
So there's two stories I found in the archives that I was able to attach to this. When you go over to the Alberta, they have this exact same story as I was told from another story holder. I believe this story was a more modern story, and whoever told that story was told it that way for a purpose, and it probably had teaching tools specifically to what the elder was trying to teach this individual. And this story was more of an ancient story. So when you click on them, it'll bring up the story. So I have the two different renders there. And you see the wolf. So this is where that happened. And just to give a pre-shadow, about 2 years ago, when COVID first hit, there was a wolf that was sitting here. And people were taking pictures of the wolf. And in this story, it's probably going to explain to you why we help animals and stuff like that. So I'm not going to need this map. I'll come back to it and show you the locations, but I wanted to show you where the location in the story told us it was upriver. And so the story starts with an old lady with a bunch of children, and they lived up in the northern regions of our territory. And as the seasons changed, they wanted to go out to dig cockles, probably around Monkey Beach area. So they actually had to take down their big houses, were able to be taken down board by board. And as they started packing up and started loading up the canoes, they didn't have enough room for their mother. And the mother was willing to stay back there. She was willing to stay back, and she told them to go ahead. The one young boy went to build his mother's fire. And he told her, this is really, really important. I'm going to build your fire for you, and you keep this going. Just keep this fire going as long as you can. They basically thought that she was going to pass because she didn't have enough food to get through the winter and stuff. So as they loaded up the stuff, they made a fire for the Sagwani, the old lady, and they started going down the river. When they went down the river, they got past Kaisla, the southern tip of the river, where the mouth meets the ocean, and they paddled all the way out. So these days we can go out and harvest and be back in a day, maybe 2 days. But in those days when you did your harvesting, imagine having to preserve that amount of really have to preserve that amount of cockles. How would you do that? Well, you'd probably string them up on doms and smoke them to preserve them. There was no ways that we were taking them and freezing them. Jars weren't around at those times, so they would have to have smoked them. And imagine how much work that would go in, not even just digging the cockles and the clams, but putting them up on doms, putting your smokehouse up, and then preserving all of your food. So they said that would have taken another season. She would have been there by herself the whole winter. So as time went on, she kept her fire going. This Flagani was really slow. She was really, really strong. So she'd be able to go get her own wood, and she stoked the fire. She started packing up more and more wood. And as the days went on, she was just staying warm in her house. And one day she heard a scratch at the door and like a yelp. And then the story was so old that we were able to talk. The animals could still speak Awikula, and that was the oldest version of our language. They actually call it now Haisla-Gala. To speak our language is to speak Haisla-Gala, but back then they were still speaking the Awikula. So she went to open the door and she saw this wolf, and she was scared of the wolf because it's a wolf. And she asked the wolf what he wanted, and he said, I'm injured. And he was chewing on a goat's kneecap, as to what he told the lady. And as he chewed onto the goat's kneecap, a piece of the bone sharded off, and it went right in the back of his jaw here. So every time he'd close his mouth, that thing would stab him further back in here, and there's nothing he could do about it. So the old lady said, okay, I'm old, I'm close to the end of my days, but I'm going to help you. You come into my house, you remember that this is my house. This is not your place. You be respectful. And the wolf agreed to that. And he basically promised he wasn't going to hurt the old lady. And she assured him again that this is her house, to be respectful, and I'm going to help you with what you're asking me. But if you kill me, you'll never get that thing out. Remember that. So she said, the wolf said, okay, and he entered the house. They sat down in there, and the wolf opened his mouth up really big. And this old lady had to go put her hand in there, and she said, remember what I told you? You don't bite me. This is my place. He grabs that piece of the bone and starts wiggling it out. And the wolf is yelping in pain, and he pulls back. And finally, he's like, he's got some relief finally. So she thanked him, and he thanked her, and she reminded him, this is my house, you be respectful here, and I'm going to open the door for you now so you can go. She opened the door, and that wolf had taken off. And as time went by, she would hear something being scuffling outside her door, and each time she went to her door, she would see what the wolf had left her. Sometimes it was rabbits, other things, maybe grouse. One day she heard howling, a whole bunch of howling, and that wolf was standing by the edge of the trees. And at this point, they were basically friends, but she still didn't fully trust the wolf. So the wolf went up and basically pawed at her door, calling her out. And he said, we got something for you. You have to come with me. And she was like, okay, but you guys don't attack me. I'm just an old lady. And he said, just wanted to show the appreciation for what you've done for me, that favor. So they walked up through the trail to where they had a deer. And basically they chewed a leg off for her to be able to put up, and the old lady carried it back. As the winter went on, the wolves kept bringing her other pieces, moose, anything. Like, she had lots and lots of meat, so her smokehouse was billowing and billowing and billowing away. She was taking all of the stuff and bringing it inside, and she was just abundant. This wolf really took care of her. She had all the stuff that she could eat there. So as she went to go get all the stuff, she was thanking the wolf. And in the meantime, her boys, the season had passed. They thought for sure the mother had died. And you can imagine how long it take to pole up our river from the mouth of Kitimat River all the way to the tip. It probably took forever, especially having the wood and everything from your collapsible longhouses, and then poling up with all your meat, preservatives, probably ducks, every piece of meat that they're trying to get. But they said they wanted to go up and bury their mother and settle her in our way by basically getting her bones, having her transition to the other side taken care of, and our Heisel responsibilities. So they pulled up. I don't know how many days they had to pull to get up the river. And when they got close enough, they saw smoke coming. So they got really excited. They started pulling faster. When the boy got out, he went running, and he saw the smoke coming out of his mom's house. He was really glad to see that she was still alive. And he invited them in. She invited them all in, and come, look at what we have. And at that time, they were transitioning from living up in the northern region at the Red Bridge and Woodine and Wadden. They came and they are going to build a village down at where Beaver territory is now, I believe. That is where on the other side of the Rod and Gun, the Emporium, that's where the beavers were. They were going to go down to around those parts to occupy there. So they were really excited that the mother was still alive, and the mother had told them the story of what had happened to her as she took care of the wolves. The wolves came and they brought me this, they brought me that, and the boys were so surprised she had more food than they had. And they couldn't believe that this old lady just kept smoking all the food over the winter. And he said, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with this? And she said, you go and call the rest of the people. We're going to come up. they're going to come up here and I want to put on a big feast. And that's what they had to do. They had to go and gather up everybody because there was so much food, they didn't want to waste it. And that was from the lady who saved the wolf. So when I brought you into that interactive map and I brought you to here, this is where that wolf was just hanging out on the side of the road and everyone was afraid of it. And I had gas in my vehicle at that time. I think I would have drove out to see what the wolf wanted. The reason I wanted to tell this story today is because I've been feeding these crows on my back porch and they've been bringing me presents. The first present that they brought me was an abalone shell. It was a really shiny, nice abalone shell. I kept feeding the crows, telling them, bring me back gifts, something shiny, something that I would like. And when I opened the door on my back porch, there was a nice shiny abalone that doesn't even look like it's from around here. I put that in my medicine bag. As they start bringing me more presents, they're bringing me, I don't know where I put it. I had a cedar. It was the most beautiful little tiny cedar and it had the little acorns on it. It looked like just a little blessing, but I opened my door and it was just sitting there. And there's no trees for it to blow over. There's like a sidewalk and then the play bush is back there. So that piece of cedar was specifically put there. Then today I went out and I don't know where I put that either. They had black lichen, which is witch's hair or old man's beard. And that was placed in a specific spot. So right after that, okay, it's kind of so after they gave me the old man's beard, I went out to the porch and there was an eagle sitting right on my railing looking at me. Basically, I think it was asking for some food. So I went into my fridge, I grabbed a freezer burnt sockeye that I've been keeping for bait. And I went out back. When I opened the door, it hopped off the railing and it went to the next door neighbor's little shed and it was sitting on there. And I said, "Yo, take stukuya hamsa, hamsa." And I tossed the fish and I thought the eagle hopped off the back deck of that shed, flew over the house. And I was like, oh man, I had my camera out ready to take a picture. And then the thing circled around, swooped down and landed on my porch. All I heard was like, poof. I was like, holy cow, because you could hear the impact that it had onto the porch. Then it just flew away. I only got a second of it flying away after that. I went out to the back porch again. I'm always feeding them different things like scraps for my meals. And it was just sitting there staring at me. So that brought me to the story of the mother that saved the wolves. In the kitlope, we had the mother that saved the eagle. So the same story, the chiefs were going down to, I'll actually just keep this open for you guys. I'll actually try and narrate this for you. So in the kitlope, depending on what clan this came from, you might have been around a Goyawa, which is Eagle Raven clan, or across here, which is the Helkinuch, the Killer Whale clan. In the back end here, you had the Beavers up Danico, and coming down here is the Salmon people. So the Salmon people, as I keep saying, were very, very special. So to go to our clam digging beds, we would have to go all the way down Chastuachstu, which is the source of this milky water. We would come down through Muscusa. Here's Muscusa. Then we would travel past Chief Matthews Bay. This is Chief Matthews Bay or Cowisas. Then we get into Camano area, which is right here. This is where we do our Ulican fishing. Here's my mom's camp, my Baba Cecil's camp, and you get into here, you got the Shaw boys, mother and father's camp. Then you got Mother's house here. It's one of the last houses standing there. You see the roof. You would pass all the way through there, coming up onto Nawakala. You'd pass Nawakala. You'd come to this place here, and it's called Flagachti, paddled halfway, and halfway to Kitimat, I'm assuming. You would have to come still up this way, paddle down here, and then once you get into here, you're coming into Monkey Beach, and there's a bunch of different clam beds around here. Here's where we get Dugga Bay. I'll tell that on a different episode. You'd have to paddle still down here, and where is it? Right here. That's as far as it'd have to go just to harvest the zuali or the zihua, which is the clams. So just like the last story, they had to get all of the braves together, the chief spokesman, everybody, they all paddled all the way out there. Then they dug their clams, they dug their cockles, and they probably did hunting at the same time. They would put up their temporary smokehouses, preserve everything that they needed. So in the meantime, the old lady stayed back, and to take care of that old lady, they left her grandchild. Her grandchild were her legs, and did all the tough tasks that you would get the little kids with a whole bunch of energy to do. As the days went on, they had just enough food, they thought, till they came back from their trip, which in those days, I don't know how long it'd take, a couple of weeks, maybe a month, maybe 3 months, which is a full season. So she was loaded up with a bunch of food. And one day they heard this big splash. And the grandson, of course, he was full of energy, jumps up out of the big house and goes running down to the beach. So they were in the lake. So I'm assuming if they're the Eagle clan, that would be at Kos. Kos is the Kitlope Lake, but they would be more specifically in Agoyawa, which is here. So the Eagle landed somewhere here in the water, and the boy went running out, and he told his grand, come see, Grand. The Tlagwani grabbed her cane, and she got up and started walking down the beach with him. They were going really slow, and she was so excited. Come on, Gran, it's an eagle, it's an eagle. And she could tell something was wrong with the wing, just by the way, because eagles swim like this, eh? And this one was struggling. It was one of the wings didn't look right. So she told her grandson, you go get that. She was afraid because it was a big eagle. Like the eagles, if you get close to them, they're huge. And he was just a boy. So it's probably about the same size as the boy, but he was in water where you'd be able to wade in and grab that eagle. And she assured the boy, he's not going to hurt you. You're helping them. That's what we're supposed to do. We help what's in need, these animals in need, and we can help them. And the boy was worried, we don't have enough food. We don't have enough food to take care of them. And she said, we'll be okay. And that's part of our family's Nuyem. If you have a meal, you always have enough for everyone who's around. Even if there's not enough, you divvy it up, you make it enough. And it's about the company that you're with that nourishes you that day. So the grandson walked in, did his wading into the water, and he grabbed the eagle and he brought him in like a baby. As he walked up to the beach, his grand said, okay, come on, we're going to take him inside. And the boy was really excited. Really, we're going to have an eagle come in? And she's like, yeah, we're going to nurse him back to health. So they brought him back, and the old lady was able to basically grab the wing, have it put back into place, and bandage it up. She would take her mortar and pestle, put different meats in there, grind it up, and give the eagle some paste and stuff like that. And sometimes she would just let him eat the chunks of flesh himself, but she was trying not to let him move around so much while she was babying him. Eh? So half the time that it took for those guys to go and come back is at the place of the story we're at now, and the food was really critical. The grandson was basically asking the grandmother, we have to make a choice. We have to either, we're going to feed ourselves or we might starve. And she said, no, we're going to feed them. We're going to take care of them. Don't worry. So that's what they did. They continued nurturing that eagle. Soon enough, it was able to move its wing and it started flapping, building up the muscle again and trusting that. And then one day it was just at the door wanting to get out. It was actually taking his talon and hitting the door like that. So as he started hitting that door, the grandmother knew that it was time for him to go. The grandson was a bit sad because they had made a good relationship. And the grandmother said, you'll remember us forever. This is how we make friends. We make friends with animals. And the grandson opened the door and that eagle flew. The next day, they woke up and they're scrounging around for food. They basically had nothing left. All their preservatives were gone. And all of a sudden, they heard a big clunk outside. The eagle had started dropping food for them, and the eagle would just tip his wing and fly by. One day, the eagle started giving more grand stuff. It started like rabbits. Then he started bringing them fish. He was fishing for them, making sure, and they started doing the same thing as that last story, started preserving everything that the eagle was bringing them. One day, the eagle had brought him a deer. The way eagles hunt deers is when the deers are on the cliffs, the eagle will just come down and smash it, and that deer falls down the cliff, and the eagles will be able to go down and pick it apart. So they were able to get a lot of fish preserved and a lot of meats preserved, a lot of mountain goat. The kitlope is just loaded with sag, which is our mountain goat. As the weeks went on, they were waiting to greet the party on the other end, and the chief and all his men came pulling up that river and came back to be able to hear the story from the grandson telling what he witnessed and how treating that animal so well, that animal treated him just as good back. So I am actually excited to see if that eagle starts bringing me gifts like that crow. The crows have been bringing me gifts. And this is when they're talking about Nolach, he's basically the deliverer of karma. He's always watching you, whether you're doing good or bad. And the reason the threes are occurring is because it's what they refer to as a negative number, but it's represents death in our way. And karma, everything comes in the threes. And Nolach is the one, he's always watching, and he's going to deliver the karma. And they got the karma delivered back to them both in those two stories by the animals that they helped in turn help them survive. So that one to me teaches me about being handsome, what it means to, my Baba would always say, if someone falls, it's our duty. Doesn't matter who they are, what their background is. You give them your hand and you lift them to their feet. And I really stand by all my grandparents' teachings right to a T. Even in death protocols, my windows are all closed up. I don't even look at mirrors. Typically, I've had a bad experience with ghosts and mirrors, so I don't like being around them. In general, I can feel the spirits looking at me, I think. Well, not I think, I know. So is there anyone on that wants to kind of guide me through where they want to see on here, or?
I'm thinking we need to wrap up soon. It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Yeah, she knows how to moderate, or else I'll just keep going. Like a 5-hour recording.
I know that the ancestors are in charge of your voice now, so.
Yeah. Well, you hear after the Devil's Club in my voice how it's firmer now. So I actually chewed on a piece this size. I break it off my bundles and then I just chew it. And once I feel it go down my throat to about here, I stop. And when you hear me with the drum, that vibration with the drum in my voice is a balance that I'm trying to get. There's a spirit in it alone. Eh? So I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight. This one has been a really, really great one. I like how Ab kicked it off, and really, I felt really inspired after that one, especially after my study tonight and then seeing everybody's life behind wanting to learn. If there's any other questions, maybe how we start off the next one after Ab does a language, I could do questions and answers to everything we've learned in the past before we go any forward, because there's going to be things that pop up in our heads in those times, maybe different emotions as well too, so we have to keep that in mind as well. So go ahead, Colchanith.
Giving thanks for the greatness of spirit in all things, the greatness of spirit in all things, giving thanks for great spirit, giving thanks at this time for this coming together of hearts in the way of learning, receiving, reflecting, understanding, feeling understood, giving thanks at this time for the stories and the songs and the language that was shared during our time together, giving thanks for the ways in which that all that was shared will echo on through our hearts and minds, and the impact this will have on us emotionally, physically, spiritually, and mentally. Giving thanks at this time for the light of our ancestors living through us, shining through us, speaking through us, singing through us. May this continue on in a good way, in a loving way, in an empowered way. Giving thanks at this time for all the things that uphold and sustain our well-being, all the forms of goodness that contribute to wellness on all levels, big and small, seen and unseen. Giving thanks at this time for the beauty of our homeland, the beauty of the place where the mountains meet the ocean, the lushness of the mountains, the depth of the ocean. Giving thanks for the seasons and the rhythms and cycles of creation that shape and define who we are and how we are as a people. Giving thanks at this time for our healing, our reclamation, as we journey back to ourselves, as we find our footing. Giving thanks for all the things that sustain and uphold that journey. Honoring and giving thanks at this time for the knowledge keepers and the pieces of knowledge that each of us carry in our hearts in relation to our people, and honoring the coming together of those pieces of knowledge to weave together something bigger than us, and honoring that thing that is bigger than us, giving thanks for it as it continues to grow and expand each and every time our hearts come together in this way.